You got one life, for crying out loudly. You might as well just give it all you got.
The Deej, Dan Jourdan.
Then you don't got to worry about selling anymore because they're just too busy buying.
What's it going to take to get you into this car today, huh?
And now, please welcome the sales energizer, Dan Jourdan.
You know how long I got to keep my arms in the air to make it? Because I always think it's right after.
We need the Rocky theme going, right? Maybe
you're the producer.
I know, but if I did that, we'd probably get a cease and desist. We'd get sued. It would cause controversy. I mean, you cause enough controversy as it is. Dan.
Have you ever been to Philadelphia and run up those steps? And you did the whole Rocky thing?
Not nearly as long and high as I thought it would be.
Oh yeah, I know. It was a lot easier to do than you think it would be. You're right.
It was.
What else? When you were a kid, were you into Evel Knievel when you were a kid?
Oh yeah. Well, I was really little when he was at his peak, but Evel Knievel was.
I was Evel Knievel. It was like nobody. I had my bicycle, and it was my orange. It was a red Schwinn, and we would set up ramps. We'd build ramps and we'd jump over garbage cans, and then we more and more into bigger and bigger ramps until one day we had a picnic table, and we said, what if we just bend the picnic table down like this? And so it was like, I went on this thing. Here I am, Evel Knievel, and I did it, and it was like, it was my first unbelievable moment. It must have been like 13 garbage cans I went over, and then Gary Zisman went after me, and this is just picture what's going to happen here because we set up a landing ramp, but I went over the landing ramp anyway. So Gary goes and he's flying in the air, and then his feet came off the pedals while he was in the air. Oh, we all turned away. I mean, it was like nightmarish. I couldn't watch. And then anyway, he lived, Gary Zisman, and he's doing great. He's actually in great shape. He owns a bunch of workout places, which are probably closed right now, but he owns workout places.
That whole deal now, because back in the Stone Ages when you and Gary were doing Evel Knievel antics, you didn't have a smartphone in your hand filming it the entire time and having it go live on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter like we are right now, filming your antics. But that's now you can go and look at fails of people just completely cracking their heads wide open on bikes and whatnot.
Yeah, but the challenge is that you can't embellish nearly as much as I can embellish now because there's no film of it.
So a little housekeeping for those of you who are joining us. We're already getting some people. Fusion Marketing, Jim Fuse. What is up, sir? Thanks for joining us. When you do join and we do see you out there, please chime in and let us know that you're where you're at, what business you're in. Today is the robots are taking over, Dan. I think we all know that eventually the robots are taking over, and now they're taking over your domain. So today's exciting, I think.
I'm totally looking forward to this. This is great, and I'm in a great mood because I got out to actually see customers today. I'm risking my life. Madeline, oh my gosh, I haven't seen her in 100 years. There's Madeline. How you doing, Madeline?
Madeline in Mexico.
Is she in Mexico already? Look at that.
Good for you, Madeline.
So I was, I got out to see a customer. I stayed 6 feet away. By the way, everybody should feel comfortable. I washed my hands before this live cast right here. But you cannot believe how just getting outside and just talking to another human being lifts your spirits. I mean, it's 100 times better. See, prior to that, if you were to tell me that the machines are taking over, I'd be concerned. I'd be worried. But now I have nothing but sheer and utter excitement and joy looking for Deborah to come on board here because she's going to teach me something and make me a little better. And so, after all, it's all about me, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, I'm not the one with logos around, and I mean, it really is about you. So
that's it. How do people perceive you is the biggest thing when it comes to sales. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. And if they know you as a big jerk, or if they know you as insecure, or if they know you as cowardly, or if they know you as, evil Jourdan, they're going to have a different reaction to anything that you're trying to help. And it's going to affect the way you can persuade or not persuade somebody. And so I was fortunate enough to meet with Deborah through a good friend of mine, Dominic, who introduced us. And she's just so super. And not only is she unbearably smart, but she actually has a personality too. So I can't wait for you to meet her.
So are we ready to bring her on?
Well, I mean, if that wasn't the segue of all time.
I guess we don't have a drum roll, but please welcome Deborah Cancro from VoiceVibes.
Look at that.
How you doing? Yes, everybody. Rocky theme. Yes.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great.
Well, terrific. So Deborah is actually, she hides it behind that smile, but she's unbelievably smart. And she's one of those that has brain. She's actually an engineer. Did I ever tell you, Deborah, I once did a speech for engineers. I was in this room, there were like 200 engineers, and I was asked to be like the MC. So I'm the MC. When I say complete and utter silence, I mean every single joke bomb. It was to the point where I was like, I was actually saying, that was funny. You ought to be laughing at that one. Somebody actually came up to me at the end and said, listen, we're really laughing on the inside. The second half, I found out they like lawyer jokes. So they worked with the But she's an engineer with a personality. So, Deborah, tell us about yourself.
Well, first of all, I hope there's not many engineers listening right now. You might.
Right.
Yeah. What would you like to know?
Oh, only the good stuff. I want to know how you got started with VoiceVibes, because it seems like one of those things, like it's a great idea that people have in the bathtub and then never gets off the ground. How did you finally get it off the ground?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so I had the idea long ago, and it was from my years as a stay-at-home mom. Actually, I would lose sleep at night thinking I was doing more harm than good by being home with my kids, because I'd have this voice by the end of the day, just, complete frustration or, nagging, whining, whatever. And my kids and my husband both were just tuning me out. And like I said, I gave up my career, put it on hold to be home, and I thought I was tearing people down all the time and doing more harm than good. So I thought at the time Fitbit was becoming popular. And if you could help people be healthier by counting how many steps they take during the day, maybe I could help myself be a more effective communicator if I counted how many times I was condescending during the day, or what percentage of the time I'm positive sounding versus negative sounding. And so that was the genesis of the idea. But to your point, there's a big difference between having an idea versus building an actual product and selling it. So it's been many years in the making. But originally, like when I first had the idea, I started researching, is anybody already doing this? And nobody was. And then, how could it be done? And I can get into the engineering stuff, but you probably don't want to hear it. But I did get a patent on detecting condescending speech, ironically. And
that's amazing. That's
yeah,
amazing.
I mean, that is amazing.
Did you detect condescension in Dan's voice just there?
Never.
Really? Are you going to show me the patent? Is that what you were bending over? Or you're doing exercise?
Oh, there it is.
But
Oh, the thing back there. Okay. Oh, you were pointing to it. That's amazing. So you actually applied for that and then you got it. But
yeah.
still, having a patent doesn't get a business off the ground.
No, not at all.
You need funding or something, don't you?
Yes. So we got over $1 million in funding from the National Science Foundation. So they have a program called the Small Business Innovative Research Grant. And we applied for that and won a phase 1 and a phase 2 and a lot of supplemental grants. And that really helped us take off. And then we have a few angel investors. But the primary funding that we've had was from the National Science Foundation. It's been great and a big blessing.
Wow. Well, now, so now we're going to get to your stuff, but now I'm down this big rabbit hole because
Right.
our listeners are all in small businesses and they're all getting started, and everybody, kind of admires you, but hates you a little bit right now. You were able to do this. I mean, that's incredible. Did you actually go in front of a panel of people and pitch?
For the grant, no, it's a written process. It's a pretty lengthy process. It's a pretty formal, like there's a lot of stuff you got to do to apply for the phase 1, and then even more so for the phase 2.
Got it. Okay, so for you listeners out there, you salespeople out there, you entrepreneurs out there that are doing, understand it's a lengthy process that most people don't do. Most people aren't willing to do the hard work it takes to make business easy. Let that sink in for a little while. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of tedious stuff. It's that annoying thing to fill out. And that really is the first disqualifier. The reason why many people get grants where you wouldn't believe they would get it, or get funding when they wouldn't believe they would get it, is just simply because they were willing to take the time to do the application. Because I wouldn't be willing to do it. It's easier for me to do something else. So that's true. I really am impressed with you for that. So that's.
But to your point, and to all your listeners, doing all that technical stuff was a challenge, but then selling is even a bigger challenge. So I've been taking sales training and learning a ton about sales, and sales is what drives business. Sales is what drives the economy. So God bless all you salespeople.
Yeah, it's the engine that runs everything, isn't it?
Amen. Yeah,
that's the whole thing. So, tell us what your product does after all this.
Well, so we provide a platform to help people practice or record anything out loud, and not only get feedback from their peers or their manager as a coaching platform, but also getting automated feedback from our AI that predicts how others perceive you. So it gives you some basic information like where you talk too fast or how many times you said and then the more sophisticated information like where in your speech you were boring, where you were captivating, where you were confident. So you can learn within the audio signal of your own speech to learn kind of what you do well and what you don't do so well, so you can practice on your own and get feedback.
Super interesting. I have to ask because there's a parallel to the business that I was in for years. For years, I was in the music business. And as you are aware, the music business went through a massive transformation 15 years ago with digital and downloads and streaming. And used to be when you needed music, you had to go to a music store and someone would suggest music, or you would listen to a radio station that was programmed by somebody else. And that was technology that was pushed to you, right? Recommendations and music. And then eventually, as digital music was incorporated and streaming services were incorporated, all of a sudden there were playlists and there were applications that said, well, if you like this and this and this and this, we think you're going to like this. And there was a huge well, that's just not going to work, right? The robots can't tell me what I like, but eventually it got better and better and better. And people started to trust the algorithms and the robots. And eventually it became better for them. They didn't have another option because a lot of record stores unfortunately got closed. But what would you say, Deborah, to someone who may be skeptical of this? Maybe someone who is, that trains speakers physically, face to face, that they have expertise in that physical transfer of energy. What would you say to someone who may be skeptical of your product?
Well, we do not replace a human coach. And so I would tell them, don't be afraid. We're not competing with you. We partner with coaches like that as a supplement and a reinforcement tool. So they like to work with us because we help their clients become more self-aware and practice things on their own. So when they're spending time with their human coach, they can work on the things that automation can't handle. So we're a great partner and great supplement.
Oh, it's very nice of you to deal with the human coach. That's good. You do it because people generally like to sell to machines better, So it's good that you allow people to have human coaches. Can you give us an example of some? Tell me a time where somebody improved themselves because of your product?
Oh, all over the place. I mean, a really common application is in high potential manager programs, and that's where we see cohort after cohort of people. Like we track their, they usually will do a survey sometimes in the beginning, especially if we're doing a pilot. We'll have them do a survey on their own perception of how they are at public speaking, and then at the end, and those numbers go up 20 or 15 to 30%, and then within the tool itself, we can track how much they improve as well, and it's about the same.
Well, how does that help somebody's career, though?
What?
How does that help somebody's career?
Oh my goodness. I mean, you know, if you come across more polished, more confident, if you're a better communicator, you will be so much more successful. And being an engineer by training, that's where I first learned this in my own career. You know, I worked at Bell Labs, and I remember my my boss telling me before we went and pitched something, he wanted me to practice in front of him in a conference room. Wow. And I remember actually being offended. I thought, you know, I know what I'm doing. I know my stuff. I don't need to practice in front of you. And now in hindsight, that was so silly and so immature. But I think a lot of people think that way. Like we, especially engineers, don't realize that the way you sound and the way you communicate, people are judging you way more based on that than on the actual words you say. So you can know your stuff, and if you don't practice and be succinct and polished, you'll not get the respect that you deserve, and your ideas won't get heard.
Amen. You know what? If you were here and it wasn't Corona time, I would hug you. I mean, that was
virtual
exactly
hug.
Right. It's the whole thing. It's the way you sound. Sales is a transfer of energy, not a transfer of words, for crying out loud. And so you're able to measure that. That's by the way, you know the difference between an extrovert and an introvert engineer?
What?
Well, the introvert engineer, whenever you meet them, they'll look at their toes. The extrovert engineer, when you meet them, will look at yours. All right. So they didn't laugh at that joke either, the engineer people. Well, so why don't you give us you know what you got to do is give us an example. Like, so what do? Do people practice this for pitching their product?
For all kinds of things. So yes, for pitching a product for sure. One example would be a sales manager who has reps recording their calls could have them, for example, once a week, they might make an assignment or an activity where they can all choose to upload something related to what they're working on. They might be working on a particular skill or particular message. So maybe once a week, he'll create an assignment to upload an example into VoiceVibes, and then they can coach each other. The manager can coach, and then they can also kind of make it competitive and see who won. So it's a fun way that people can get coaching, and it's very scalable. And you're saying, if I can interrupt, so you're saying that it's good to practice your pitching, and your particular customers are like sales training companies. So like a sales training company, you would like to sell your product to them. Is that right? Yes, like sales training companies are partners of ours, I'd say, so they can incorporate VoiceVibes in with their training as a reinforcement platform for sure.
You know, lucky for you, we actually have a friend of the show, Jason Smith, who actually works for one of the best sales training companies out there, Aslan. And if you're comfortable with it, and of course you can't say no now because you're live here, why don't we see how you can pitch him? Why don't you see if you can bring Jason aboard here, Chris? Oh, look at that.
Here we have Jason Smith.
Hi, Jason.
Okay. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Man, if I was doing any better, I'd have to take something for it.
All right.
What was that?
It was a good line, and she didn't hear it.
Didn't land it. Like you were just saying about speaking clearly and articulately, that wasn't done. I mumbled it, so I muffed it.
Well, I've learned that sometimes it could be a technical issue. It could be a problem with your mic. So
that's it.
Blame it on the tech.
Blame it on the tech.
That's right. Robots, they don't know, apparently.
Well, so, Deborah, this is Jason, and Jason, this is Deborah. I try to have him on as little as possible because he's better looking than me, and he gets all the attention.
Stop. Quit while you're here.
But Jason, do you know anything about VoiceVibes?
I know as much as I've heard in the green room waiting to come on. I just learned about VoiceVibes, but the value proposition she just talked about is something I'm struggling with right now. We here at Aslan have a 25-year curriculum that's been delivered face-to-face in front of a lot of people. And just like a lot of companies are doing right now, we have to translate that process into online remote training, and engagement is critical. So if VoiceVibes can help with that, we're interested in knowing how, because we're building out our technology platform as we speak.
Perfect.
Is that it? Perfect. I mean, I'm ready to go after him, but you're just going to say perfect. Why don't you give us an example? Prior to the show, Jason, we actually did something. We did a little test of this voice option. So why don't you explain what's going on here, Deborah?
Okay, is this Chris's screen?
This is my screen, yeah. But if you just want to tell me where to point and click, I can do so.
Yeah, so we shared, Chris, the Deej, and I made recordings of our 30-second commercial. So you can click on the Deej there in the middle on his 30-second commercial.
It's his show. I guess we have to. Okay. But you know, you only did a 14-second. That's all it took. Apparently. All right. So here's Dan's test recording.
Hey, this is Dan Jourdan, the Sales Energizer, and we work with companies that want to build their sales teams, build their closing ratio, and dominate their marketplace. Is that you?
But Chris, click right above that on the title.
And here's the analysis. Look at the grades. Is there anywhere why he is?
So explain what that all means. To me, it's just numbers.
So the coolest part of it is if you scroll down. Now, this was a short recording, but see his positive vibes? Mm-hmm. Hover over the positive vibes there, and it'll make clickable any of those where he was above average, which is most of them. So then click on any of them, like captivating or
captivating
in the pop-up. That's where.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Yep. Well. Oh, so right there is where he scored most highly in terms of being captivating.
Interesting.
And go over the negatives.
And so you can go back up here and find that spot, right?
We work with companies that want to build their sales teams, build their closing ratio, and
so that was the most captivating part of it right there. Oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's really neat. So you can
like that.
And we all know he does not lack in confidence. So let's find out where he was most confident.
It's
in generally the same spot. So you had to, you needed a couple seconds to warm up, Dan, but then you were just like right in the flow.
Let's put on someone else. Because I want to see what are we looking for? What's bad?
I'm sorry, Jason, you were saying something?
Well, I think I see the gist of the tool here, and what I see it as is a technology tool to help me refine the way I verbally deliver my messages. So if I've got a team of trainers, hypothetically, all over the world, and I want to optimize them for this new virtual environment, then I could use this tool to refine what they're doing and make sure that everybody's presenting with the right timbre and pitch and tone. Is that right?
Exactly. And the consistency of message also with a large team is really important. So it's a way that they're getting some feedback and they're practicing, and then they can share with each other or share with you, but getting everybody to practice, and you can upload examples in there. And so it's a way to distribute examples and then have people practice immediately.
Gotcha. And is this offered in enterprise licenses for dozens of reps?
Yep.
Okay.
So Dan, I'm sorry. So I know you want this off of you. It's like no other time in history. He wants the attention off of him. But I'm looking at this and I look at pausing, and I see that the meter is if Dan wants to improve himself, he may need to pause a little bit more. Am I reading that correctly, Deborah?
Yeah. And it still found him a 9 out of 10. So he still did very well. But if he were to work on something, that would be what the software is suggesting.
And upspeak?
Upspeak is usually when you're asking a question. So in a sales scenario, if you're asking a question, then it's great.
But it's the valley voice that I really hate, where certain people upspeak all the time. and they end every sentence with a question.
Oh, right.
And they always do this too much, and everything they say just leaves you at a point. They feel like they're going to say something else until they actually drop their voice.
That's good. And see, that's real important, because I've had someone that I was coaching, and every time I would tell them that, they would get mad at me. And here it's not me telling you, it'll be your product telling them.
Do you know the self-centered focus that causes that is you don't want to relinquish control of the conversation. Now that you got the microphone, you've learned a verbal technique to let people know that you have more to say. Now, I'm not done. Hang on. Wait a minute. I still want to talk. And that's what puts people off who recognize it. Yeah. Unless they talk like that all the time themselves.
That's right. That's
very. So Deborah, are we going to look at somebody else's recording here?
That's your call. We can look at yours, Chris.
Oh, great. Okay, great. Now,
you know what? I got a suspicion that Dan really wanted to click on someone else's to have that contrast to his damn near perfect score.
No, I want to know from you, does your product tell, you say vibes. I understand that's how I'm sounding, but I want to know how I'm being received by my prospect or customer. So what's something that the customer hears that really turns them off, so I can avoid that?
Funny that you ask. We've done a lot of research on that. So to train our AI, we actually had over 100,000 ratings of people's perceptions. And what we found in looking at that data, in addition to asking people about vibes, we also said, would you want to buy from this person? Do you believe in this person? And do they sound like an executive? But in terms of that question, would you want to buy from this person? Captivating, confident, authentic, those all strongly correlated with people wanting to buy. In fact, if you don't sound at all confident versus being extremely confident, people are 13 times more likely to want to buy from you if you sound extremely confident. And then on the other side, interestingly, we found that it's 3 times worse to be boring than it is to even be arrogant. So even though it's bad to be arrogant, it's even worse to be boring.
Ah, look at that. Hey, that actually
I hope I'm not boring.
I hope that's true, because that's something I could use.
Now
I'm curious, now that I see the numbers, let me hear Chris's recording.
Oh gosh. Yeah, here we go.
7.4.
Hey, this is Chris Stone, and I am about to go live on the Dan Jourdan live stream with Deborah Cancro of VoiceVibes, and I could not be more excited to present the robots. The robots are taking over, ladies and gentlemen, and they're analyzing my voice right now. In fact, the robots are analyzing the cloud, and apparently I'm kind of boring in my delivery, but I'm excited to get better.
There's nothing like recording something in 27 seconds and you don't have a script.
Exactly.
I'm looking at the thought process going through your mind, Chris. It's like, hey, I know my name, but let me drop my voice as I make sure I don't mispronounce her name.
Very good.
Right there. It's like,
I'm
going to say her name exactly right and back to my normal volume as I'm thinking. It's interesting. What an interesting tool.
Yeah. This is fascinating. And I like the fact that Deborah gave me a nice job in the comments. Dan, I don't think she gave you a nice job on yours when we were looking at it. So I feel, Deborah, thank you. I think she's trying to make me feel better. Even.
You know what's really good about this is being in the sales training world and having to deal with things like this, is that the machine itself allows you to, because let me back up. Even when I was asked to do this in front of you guys, was a little, on the spot. Let me get into the zone, and I had to get ready. I was a little nervous because doing things in front of people. But this allows you to practice alone by yourself, and you're more inclined to use it in that case. And then that's really neat. This would be great, because that's the worst thing in the sales training world. You ask people to role play, which is the most helpful thing in the world, and they just won't do it.
Well, I'll tell you what, Deborah, I am about to jump off of this call to jump on a team call with Azlet Training, and I have a standing order to go out and find technologies that can help us in our approach to digitizing, virtualizing our training. So I'd really like to use a free trial of this, if I could, to take a couple of samples of my own voice and maybe some of the guys on my team. Maybe I can get this just a clip of this little segment where we're talking specifically to me to show to my team. And I think that we could circle back in the next week or so to see about whether or not this is a fit. How does that sound to you?
That sounds great. I'd love to get on your calendar to schedule that meeting.
Look at that. Have you closed the meeting or closed a meeting appointment from your podcast yet?
It's going to happen right now. Deborah, how does Tuesday look? That's
Tuesday
your line.
looks good, Dan.
No, you got to ask him that. This is what you have to say. Jason, if you can get your calendar out, Jason, how you looking?
Apparently in the live stream, I need calendar integration for our guests.
Yes, there you go. I am totally booked because I am actually presenting and coaching from 10 to 1, but my 2:30 looks good on Tuesday the 14th. How about you, Deborah?
2:30 sounds great. I will send you a calendar invite.
Now, wait. Dan, I want you to give him the questions that you told me on the setup when we did our pitch. So I'm going to call you, right? How do you do it like you said you do it?
That's right. Okay. So Jason, at 2:30 on Tuesday, I'm going to give you a call, and you're going to pick up, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, you'll do it. All right. So, and if there's a zombie apocalypse or some crazy stuff, and you really can't make it, you'll call me ahead of time. Right. Okay. But barring that, a Tuesday at 2:30, I'm going to give you a call and you're going to answer the phone. Right.
Yes, I will. Look at that airtight confirmation. I want to incorporate that when we teach our advanced techniques. I appreciate it, guys.
Slam it right in.
Jason, thanks so much for joining us.
You're the best.
Dan, thank you so much, Chris. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Deborah. Good to meet you guys.
We'll hook up afterwards. See,
that's what happens today.
That one's here. That's what happens here on the on the 4 o'clock happy hour here for the Sales Energizer podcast. Actually, by the way, we haven't talked about the Sales Energizer podcast yet. Oh, we dropped another one today.
We dropped a new one today. We're having one of the best days ever for the Sales Energizer podcast. So those of you who are watching, if you have not downloaded the Sales Energizer podcast, I won't say shame on you, but you're really missing out on some free sales
magic.
I think magic is underselling it, Dan. I really do. I mean, if I were analyzing that, I don't know if I'd give that vocal delivery a 7.4. I'd give it more of like a 6.8. Yeah. I would say that this podcast is filled with sales mastery.
Ooh, look at that. It's actually a lot of fun. The podcast is good. Yeah. It keeps moving very quickly. It's a stream of thought as we're going along. It's like I'm able to download whatever craziness is going on in my head, and it just comes right out. And I think we even mentioned Deborah on this one. You got to change this view now so we can get bigger heads on here.
Okay. We'll see what we can do. But we're sharing a screen, all right? Or do we want to look? Are we done looking at the screen? I did have one question, if I could.
Yeah.
Let me get back to this look. Word spotting. This was something that showed up on mine, but did not show up on Dan's. I'm curious, what is that?
So there's default word spotting. So, like, so, basically, simply, and right, because people say right a lot.
Oh, so it identified me saying that.
Yeah, we don't ding you for that. We only ding you for the yes and ums, but we make you aware, and it's programmable. So for Jason, if he uses this in his training, if they have specific assignments where they have people practice handling objections or practice something specific, they can put in certain words they want to make sure people say in that assignment. And we count them. And then if you click on them, it'll show you where you said it.
I'd like to hear one of your success stories. A company. Do you have companies that you started with, a long time ago, and they're still with you and they love you and it's part of their system?
Yes, but to be honest, we've only been in sales training since January, maybe late December this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the funding that we got from the National Science Foundation was an EdTech grant. So we started as an EdTech product, and we were selling to colleges and universities. Uh-huh. And so, like, one of the longest ones we've had, still with us today, Ohio State uses us in their COM 101 kind of public speaking classes, things like that. We're in a lot of schools still to this day, like Stanford, William & Mary, Texas A&M, a lot of schools.
Really? Well, Kennesaw here in Georgia has you can get a degree in sales. This would be perfect for them.
We're working right now with some sales curriculums with some MBA programs and some online universities right now.
Oh, okay. So we got some business to go on. Well, this was great. I really appreciate you coming. Any other questions, Chris?
We're just getting some comments from various people. I think a lot of these comments came in when you were talking about how speakers should be doing it from human interaction by showing love and care, by telling them the truth. Here's an interesting one.
Who needs truth?
By apologizing where you are wrong if told. So this is something that I've heard is that generally people say, I'm sorry too much when they should be saying something else that shows consideration, but not really apologizing so much. Would you guys agree? Like, I think a lot of people say, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. And they use it so much as like a filler when we should be using different language unless it's something you truly should be apologizing for.
Yeah. Apologizing for what? For being wrong? I mean, who cares? My goal is to be, right 51% of the time. I'm on the right side of the equation. Look, who's never wrong? People who don't try. Who doesn't make mistakes? People that don't, get outside. Of course, my dad taught me this. Danny, if you're not falling, you're not skiing. That's how I learned how to ski. Hey, I'm falling. If you're not falling, you're not skiing.
I like that.
Life is too easy. If you're not falling on your face every once in a while, then you're playing it too safe. And that's no way to live, right? That's why we got to do this stuff live. I know I'm talking over you, Deborah. You probably had something to say.
Well, being the nerd that I am, Chris, I've actually seen a presentation on the best way to apologize from a business perspective.
Ooh, okay.
Called Corporate Visions. Tim Reister that's actually published something on this, and I went to his talk last week. But they've actually researched the best way to do an apology in the order of things. So the ideal way is to offer to repair it, then acknowledge responsibility, then declaration of repentance, then explanation of problem, and then expression of regret. So there you go. There's a science for everything.
I'm sorry. Declaration of what?
Declaration of repentance.
Declaration of repentance.
Oh, wait, no.
That sounds like saying you're sorry to me, doesn't it?
But you know what's not on there, so I'm not going to throw that one out just because it's academic, and I tend to do that. But what you'll see is not on there is excuses. There was never a point, never make an excuse. So I have a stepfather-in-law who's since passed, Earl. And Earl Geiger was a big dude with Orkin Pest Control. He actually did the merger between Orkin and Rollins. And so he was the only non-family member C-suite guy. He was the VP of sales. Really cool. You could keep everybody else on there. I like looking at other people. Thank you. And so he was the only C-suite guy there. And he was brutal. I mean, back in the 70s, the guy was just, if you were late, if you gave an excuse, you'd be fired. I mean, in front of everybody. It was a crazy thing. But he used to say the difference between an excuse and a reason is the way it's spelled. And nobody likes excuses. And so he wouldn't let you do it. But if you were late, there was one answer you can give. And it's similar to what you said about your declaration of repentance. It was this. Well, by the way, can you Deborah, give me an excuse for being late. Just make one up.
My dog ate my homework. No.
Fired.
Traffic.
My alarm clock didn't go off.
Oh, good. Fired. Chris, what'd you say? Traffic?
Traffic.
Fired. I mean, all these things are fired. This is what you're allowed to say. I'm sorry. I didn't leave early enough. It won't happen again. And if you think about it, it's true. I know there was traffic, but if you left yesterday, I mean, you would have made it. There's I'm sorry. I didn't leave early enough. It won't happen again. And taking full responsibility. When you take full responsibility, nobody can be mad at you. You know?
And you just got to make sure you don't do it again.
All right.
Yeah, you got to make sure you don't do it again, or you'll definitely be fired at that point, right?
That's right. I don't know if that would give you a top score in your voice vibes. How was my vibes, by the way?
You have great vibes. My goodness, when I met you, I thought that guy gets the power of being enthusiastic.
Oh yeah,
yeah, but he's still a little high on the upspeak though.
You got
to work on the upspeak.
I've never been so honored when people. A lot of times people meet me and say, "Hey, nice vibes."
Wow,
there's a pickup line.
So Deborah,
what a set of vibes.
Actually, the word vibes is becoming popular now. My kids use it. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, vibes is
How old
definitely.
are your kids?
My kids?
Yeah. How old are they?
15 and 17.
15 and 17.
They say mom's vibing whenever I'm working.
Oh, that's cool.
They're proud to talk about their mom's company because it sounds.
Are they watching? Are they watching the live? No.
Well, they can be on team replay. How's that?
They could be vibing with you.
That's right. That's right.
I put them on.
They wear the t-shirt. That makes me happy.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
So Deborah, this has been awesome. I for those of you who are watching or will be watching on replay, we'll put a bunch of links, obviously, but it's myvoicevibes.com. Don't go to VoiceVibes. Make sure you add my at the front. But across all socials, it's VoiceVibes. Awesome technology. I did have one other question, Deborah, that I thought about. When I did go to myvoicevibes.com, I saw as one of the sales points that it was built by speech and linguistic experts. So, how did that all? Does that plays into the magic and the sorcery behind the algorithms and whatnot on the tech, or how exactly were these experts involved in the tech?
Well, thanks for asking. To your earlier question, Dan, about starting this up, that was a big part of it, is recruiting the team to build it. So I live here in the DC area, and there's a lot of smart people that work for the government. So recruited a lot of people that I could never afford full time. But on our team, we have a former VP of speech research from Bell Labs, a researcher in deep learning that's done projects for DARPA, someone from the Applied Physics Lab at Johns Hopkins, an acoustic psychologist who used to work at Bell Labs. I used to work at Bell Labs. So a lot of us, a very large team of people with very specialized skills, were able to all come together and work on this over years. And then the other big part was collecting the data. Like, we had a huge effort of collecting samples of people's voices, originally with actors, then with stuff from anywhere.
Wow.
And getting people to listen to it all and rate it all took years.
That's cool.
That's amazing. Very cool.
Hey, we have to shout out to put Jordan Favor up there again.
All right.
Yeah, he's a big fan. Say like Jordan Favor. Hey, Jordan, if you're watching this, put your picture on there, for crying out loud. What's wrong with you?
What are you doing hiding from us, Jordan?
I haven't seen this kid. So here's he's a friend of my son's, and everybody hangs out together, and I don't see anybody anymore.
Well, Jordan, I don't get a good vibe from your YouTube avatar.
He's vibeless.
Right.
He's a man without vibe. Have you ever met someone like that? Like, you got no vibe. Yeah.
I'm one of them. I'm boring all the time. My software tells me that.
That's impossible.
I'm going to tell my kids. Dan Jordan's kids listen to him on the webcast.
No, well, they listen to my podcast. They don't listen. Jordan, that's my son's friend. Like, they don't. My kids don't listen to squat. My daughter's at the lake, and so they're hanging out doing that stuff. So I'm all alone in the house. This is the problem. I'm not going to say the thing that Chris Stone.
I can kick you off the live stream, Dan. I have the power.
It's good for like the first day, and now it's terribly depressing. You're all alone. And by the way, is that a problem? Is that you're my psychiatrist. Is that like a personality trait? I mean, I get physically, there's a physical change in me when I'm not around people.
You're an extreme extrovert. I think we all know that.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the drugs, but now that I know that it's natural, thank you. Well, Chris, you're awesome. Deborah, this was great. So far, you've been the second best guest.
Wow.
And who was the first?
I don't know yet, but I didn't want to. I was about to say you were the best, and then I was thinking I'm going to insult everybody else, so I'm just going to say you're second best. So everyone's going to.
So between us, Deborah,
Yeah,
and the millions of people that are watching this right now,
that's right.
you're the best.
You say that to all the visitors, but thank you.
But you got an appointment today.
Yeah,
You
thank
got an
you.
actual sales call. You know, that's it. That's whenever what I tell everybody. Whenever you meet the Deej, your life gets a little bit better.
Just a little bit. No.
Yeah, a little bit.
I
better.
can't think of a better way to end this live stream. Deborah, thank you so much. Dan, I think it's time.
Subscribe to the podcast. That means you, Jordan Favor, and tell your brother to do it too.
It's the Sales Energizer. Type it in to however you listen to podcasts. It's super easy to press play. And with that, it's time to play our sponsor.
Oh, the sponsor. Who's that?
Well, if your sales team sucks and you don't know what to do, call Deej 678-910-9912. Call Deej 678-910-9912.